Well, welcome to the Cut for Time podcast here at the Canton United Methodist Church. I'm joined today by Pastor Teresa Whetsel from the Miller United Methodist Church, an official friend of the podcast now. She's been on a couple times with us, and just wanted to share with you all. This is a audio and video podcast, and today I have my daughter Emmeline with me. The reason why I've been on parental leave this month is because Emmeline was born in November, and now we're just kind of waiting until she's old enough to go to daycare, which happens in a week. I just wanted to hop on with this episode to talk about Sunday's message from Pastor Steve, which was called Hiking Partner and based off of Psalm 23. Before we do that, though, Teresa, I just want to hop on real quick and tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Where are you from? And what is one thing in 2022 that you're excited about when it comes to the Miller United Methodist Church?
Oh, goodness. Well, I am Teresa Whetsel. I serve at the Miller United Methodist Church. I've been here just over 3.5 years. My husband and I have 3 grown children and a grandson who will be 1 in about 3 weeks. Yeah.
What?
February 19th, he will be 1.
Seriously? Where did that year go?
I don't know.
Oh my gosh.
But he is just a joy, and we're having so much fun spoiling him to death.
Good job, Grandpa.
Yes. What am I excited about in 2022? I think today, my answer would be our new single board leadership structure. We're just implementing it. We had our first leadership team meeting last night. And everyone is excited about it. It went really smoothly. And I just think we have assembled a great group of people to lead our church this year, and excited to see what this new structure will enable us to do together. So.
Great. So Steve's message on Sunday was based off of Psalm 23. Do you have any thoughts about Psalm 23 at large? I asked that for a reason because I have a little bit of a love-hate relationship with Psalm 23. What's your relationship with Psalm 23, Teresa?
I get the love-hate relationship. I think I maybe have a bit of that too. Mm-hmm. But I led a retreat, 10, 12 years ago now, all about the sheep and shepherd verses that we find, especially in the New Testament. Mm-hmm. And we took a deep dive on all of them.
Oh, wow.
And I think I gained a new appreciation for the 23rd Psalm through that, because we really broke down what would this have meant to the shepherds of the first century.
Nice. That's awesome.
And what does it mean that a shepherd leads us beside still waters, and and all of the things. So even though I still hate being called a sheep, because the Bible's basically calling us dumb. Yeah. Over and over and over again.
Yeah. Sheep are not smart animals at all.
Right? Not wrong, but
no. But also, yeah, hey, it's like, we get it, but hey, come on,
But yeah, and I just want to say for the podcast, for the record, that I really appreciated Steve's message.
Yeah.
I thought it was a powerful message, a timely one. I think right now, a lot of us have a lot of fears. We have a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, just with the state of the world as it is.
Yep.
Not only in a pandemic, but with tensions with Ukraine and just all the things.
Yeah, definitely.
That I thought it was very apt for the moment that we're in. So
yeah. Yep.
Thank him. Steve, if you're watching, thank you.
Yeah, no, I've appreciated this entire series. Being the first part of the new year, and we do carry baggage with us. And so he's talked about anger and bitterness. He's talked about fear. He's talked about pride, which is Sunday. And these are all things that are good for us to think about leaving behind, and really leaving behind, and not, I was telling Eric last week on the podcast that I'm really good at leaving things behind with God for a real hot second, and then saying, oh, no, I need that. I'll fix that. I'll fix that. rather
You got
than,
this, God.
yeah, right. Yeah, I'm really good
I
at
want to
that.
bother you. I'll handle this one.
Right. Yeah. This doesn't rise to the level of God stuff. This is just, Clay can figure this out. And so these
Do you
things,
ever listen to Brene Brown?
yes.
She says that her therapist quite often tells her, yeah, you're really good at let go and let Brene. And like, I'm guilty of that.
Yes. Yep. So then to have this reminder coming from the pulpit, being grounded in the word of God and even in the promises of God, I think has been really, it's been helpful for me. And I know that's been helpful for others in the congregation as well. So yeah, I was
It is
really
good
glad.
stuff.
Yep, definitely. One of the things that, didn't come into play nearly as much is kind of some of like David's need for a hiking partner in the message. Yeah. So,
Mhm.
do you want to talk more about some of what Psalm 23 has to offer us as those that are looking for hiking partners?
It's good to think about for as a shepherd looking at his sheep, right? Sheep will not drink from running water. So a babbling brook,
right?
Things like that, any sort of river, stream, any movement in the water, the sheep will not drink. You take them to a stream, they'll sit there on the banks and literally die of thirst.
Yeah.
They cannot drink from moving water. So the fact that he leads me beside still waters, he takes me to not only water that I need, but the type of water that I need. It's a specificity. One of my favorite, and of course, I know Steve read from a different translation, and I pulled up the NRSV here. And of course, the language I'm familiar with, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no evil.
Yeah.
It's not, if I may perhaps someday maybe go through the dark valley.
Right.
It's even though.
Yes.
In other words, we will.
Yes. Yeah.
Go through dark valleys.
Absolute eventuality. Yep.
Right. Yep. I think so often we want to think of the Bible as some sort of fairy tale, where if we just believe hard enough, nothing bad will ever touch us.
Right.
And right here, nope.
Yeah.
There's gonna be crap days or crap seasons. But you know what? You don't go through it alone.
Exactly.
We've got that hiking partner with us.
Yes, definitely.
And I think that talked a little bit about what Steve was talking about too, is with our fear and our worry. Sometimes we bring on our own dark valleys, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I loved his story of the worry basket or the worry, whatever it was.
Yep.
Box.
Yep.
My mother-in-law calls it a worry basket. So
okay. Yeah, no, they only worry on Wednesdays, and 80% of the things that we fear don't even come to pass. And that was a really nice illustration of that reality.
Right? Because if we hold on to those worries, we're making our own dark valleys. And even then, we have a hiking partner.
Right. Yep. Yep. Yeah, when I use this in funerals a lot, and because people will request this, because I do say, is there a passage of scripture that's meaningful, to either, the person that we're celebrating or to you as a family. And a lot of times they do say Psalm 23. And one of the things I like to highlight is that, even though we walk through the dark valley, like that's first of all inevitable, and especially at a funeral, that's where we are. And then second of all, God promises to go with us every step of the way. Like God doesn't bring us God doesn't walk with us to those dark valleys and then say, see you later, good luck. God is with us every step of
right. He's not Scar with Simba. See that valley down there? You should go down there.
Yes. Right.
That God is not Scar. I'm in a Disney nerd mode this week.
I so appreciate that. That might be episode title. So
Another line that I like to lift up, because I don't think we think about it here in the 21st century. And again, looking at a different translation than Steve did.
Yeah.
But towards the end in verse 5, you anoint my head with oil. Now, we, of course, think of anointing, right?
Yep.
But for a shepherd with his sheep, they would have put oil on the sheep to keep fleas, ticks, and other
Creepy
gnats
bugs.
and nits
Yeah.
away.
Yep.
So that anointing is not just setting you aside for a special purpose,
Right.
but it is a layer of protection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That I don't think we always associate when we read this psalm.
Definitely. Yeah.
You know, so our hiking partner is looking out for us, giving us exactly what we need, walking with us and giving us protection.
You know, David, this is such a personal, this is a psalm of David, and these are things that he would have personally been being a shepherd, and then having the role that he had in God's plan. This is such a personal psalm. I can read the life of David and read these things, he would have known what it was like to be anointed. He would have and reflect back on that memory, reflect back on that feeling, when it comes to the way that God works in his life. And then right before that, with the table in the presence of his enemies, David had enemies,
big time.
The Philistines are not the only, David and Goliath is not the only conflict in his life. He goes through it every step of the way.
His entire life.
Yeah, definitely. Because it's Saul and Saul's jealousy, and then it's the Philistines, and it's the other nations around Israel that, led to, the golden era of Israel's history. Is under the kingship of David. But even then, Absalom, his son, breaks off, and,
yes,
he goes
and Jonathan gives him what for about Bathsheba too.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely. Yes.
So,
yep. So,
I think quite often we think of David as this golden boy of the Bible, right?
So true. Yes.
And if there was a Mr. Popularity in scripture, I think many of us would think it was David, right?
Right.
Voted,
right. Most likely to
most likable,
or most,
right. Yep. Everyone was out to kill this guy. Everyone.
Yeah.
From the time he was a kid.
Yes. Well, even Samuel comes to anoint, the next king, Jesse doesn't even present him for consideration.
They don't even bother calling him in from the fields.
Even his own dad doesn't he knows what it's like to be in the presence of his enemies, because he was the entire stretch of his life.
Yeah.
And that has to do something to a person. That has to, introduce an element of fear.
Right. And anxiety and worry.
Definitely. Yeah.
This is a guy who hid in caves to avoid assassins that were coming after him.
Right.
This is a man who understood fear and worry.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. And yet he still identifies the fact that God is, his good shepherd. God is the one taking care of his literal physical needs, taking care of his, taking care of everything that's going on. So, that's such a...
And finding peace and comfort.
Yeah.
In God's presence. It's a powerful example for us.
Yes. Yep.
How often do we let ourselves just be at peace in God's presence, knowing that his rod and his staff comfort us and protect us?
Yes.
So I just, as I get older, I have a deeper appreciation for this psalm. I mentioned this before we started the recording, but I found the list that Steve gave of the top 8 things people worry about.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yes, me too. Yep. Yeah, that was one of the first things I wrote in my notes, is that the top 8 fears have definitely changed through the years. Because like when he said it on Sunday, I was like, okay, here we go. Death and public speaking are for sure going to be mentioned. Not anymore. They did not make the top 8. That is for
Death
sure.
of a loved one
Yep. Right.
made the top. It was number 5. I had to pause and actually write them all down.
Yeah, nice.
Because I was just fascinated. And yet saddened when I look at what's going on in our country and in our world. The fact that corrupt government officials,
right,
illness of family or self, death of loved ones, climate change, high medical bills, and civil unrest all made the top 10.
Yeah.
That says so much about where we are right now here today.
I wonder how much COVID has changed all of that, like, because we have been so afraid. I mean, and rightfully, like, COVID is scary. Like, let's not minimize that. But we have been so afraid for so long with good reason. I wonder how that has shifted some of those fears.
I'm curious. You're a new dad, bringing a baby into the world in the midst of COVID.
Yep.
What is your number one worry?
I worry about the kind of world that we're going to be living in, because that Emmeline is going to be living in, because we have seen for better, no matter what side you land on this, masks have become such a polarizing thing. And we have there's a level of our care for one another that feels like it's gone out the window. How are they going to interact with one another? Is it going to be with a mutual care for one another, or is it going to be just, I'm me and I'm the most important and everything else takes a back seat to my deepest needs and desires? And I have been at camps before, and we've heard talk of, the teenagers 10 years ago when we were doing LTC or whatever, of being so entitled, and the rise of the Karens and the rise of the whatever else you want to call it. But like, there is just this lack of mutual care for one another, and bringing a kid into that atmosphere when you're so not used to that and not how you operate and see the world is really, it's challenging.
Yeah. Yeah, that's totally fair.
Yeah.
I think for me, one of the things that really worries me about the future is how people connect. For me, such a big part of the Christian story is our connection with one another. We are built and meant to live in community.
Yeah.
And this is not community.
Correct. Right.
And I worry about Emmeline's generation, my grandson Rome's generation, of finding ways to be in genuine community, and have that mutual care and support and accountability.
Sure.
And accountability.
Right.
Because that's a huge part of community.
Yeah, for sure.
And this half revealing of ourselves behind a screen it's just fake and it's crap.
Yes. Yeah, no, totally. Yeah. I mean, it's that whole concept of the second self, and, it's so easy to be an entirely different person.
Yeah.
And to curate your, how you present yourself to the world,
And it's also easy to just be a jerk and walk away.
Yep.
There's no repercussions to typing in the worst possible things.
Yep.
And I think we're doing so much harm to our psyches, to our mental states, by not having genuine connection.
I was just talking with my office manager earlier today about just how, bullying has become so much. I mean, I was bullied in school. I think we all were, but like
Yeah.
there now you can be bullied about something that one
It's a
maybe
whole
didn't even,
nother level.
oh gosh, it maybe didn't even happen. And like you might even not know that you're being bullied by someone because there are so many different avenues to, connect.
One of the things I've seen that's happening at schools
Hmm.
is people are taking pictures of kids' shoes in the bathroom under the walls of the stall, and they're posting them online. So now kids are even afraid to go to the bathroom
Gosh.
at school. Like,
Wow.
this is a basic human function.
Right. Yeah.
We all have to use the restroom multiple times a day. If you aren't, please see your doctor. But that's the level of bullying and shaming.
Yeah.
Why are we shaming people for something that we all do?
Mm-hmm. Right.
But yeah, I've seen multiple kids saying, yeah, I don't go to the bathroom at school because my school has a so-and-so shoes account. Like, it's crazy. Our kids don't need to be worried about that.
No.
Of
Goodness,
all the
no.
things that they have on their shoulders at school in 2022,
Right.
like, can we at least let them, pee in peace? Like, how do we let everyone know that even in those moments, we have a hiking partner? And I think it's good for us to remember and to try to implement some of those anti-anxiety, anti-worrying, anti-fear practices in our life that I think Steve was really good at giving us some practical tips on.
Yep.
But
Absolutely.
also, how do we teach that to our kids, to our grandkids, to our friends, to our neighbors?
Sure.
Because I think the more that we can spread peace, the better off we will all be.
And like maybe it's even just a matter of, we adults deal with fear and anxiety and stress and anxiety disorders, and so maybe how the part of the answer is modeling those things that Steve lifted on Sunday, of seeking professional help if that's what's appropriate, of doing, of facing our fears and realizing that 80% of the stuff that we are afraid of isn't going to come to pass, of learning more, of understanding those things that we fear of, because one of my irrational fears is snakes, like just straight up. I am afraid of snakes. And the reason why is because I don't understand how they can move that fast without legs. And so I'm afraid of snakes. Like they scare me. But if I were to actually like really dig in and understand, I understand that they can move and squirm and propel themselves that way, but I don't know how that works. I don't get that. So yeah, if we learn more about those things that we're afraid of, and even just name those things that we're afraid of, if modeling,
I loved the power of just write it down.
Yeah.
There's something about the control. I'm putting this fear on paper. The fear does not have me. I have it. And I'm putting it here.
Right.
That I think we can regain some of that strength over whatever the fear is.
Yep.
And I think you were talking about modeling. I think giving some of these tools to our kids too, because we're seeing anxiety in very young children right now.
Yep.
And to be able to give them some tools to deal with it. I loved the worry box of write it down. You can have Taco Tuesday and Worry Wednesday. I think that's a beautiful thing. Go into Worry Wednesday fortified. But to give them the tools to healthily deal with some of these things. Right. The worry box and prayer, because I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's both.
Absolutely. That's why I appreciated Steve's last, like the last practical thing that he said was, fix what we can control, but give to God those things that we cannot control. And that has to be so, it has to be a part of every single part of these things. It's not like a step. It's giving to God has to happen at every possible juncture, because God's the one that's ultimately able to do anything about these things.
I was listening to someone earlier today on a podcast, and they were talking about the word surrender. And how so often we sort of bristle at that word. Like it feels like losing. It feels like giving up. Oh, we don't like that. We are rugged people. We are going to win. We are going to overcome.
Yep.
We don't like this concept of surrender.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to faith, when it comes to God, think of it not so much as giving up, but giving over.
Yeah.
What can you give over to God?
Mm-hmm.
And just say, this is too big for me. I need you to carry this burden.
Yeah.
When my mom was sick with leukemia, she died. Oh gosh, it'll be 15 years in May.
Oh, wow.
Mom lived in Omaha, and so I was driving back and forth almost every weekend to go and see her. I lived in Watertown at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a lot of time of just me in the car on the road. And after one particularly tough visit where we did not get good medical news, I was incredibly angry and mad at God.
Fair.
And quite frankly, I was screaming, I was cursing, I was crying as I'm driving up the interstate. And it got to the point I was crying so hard, I wasn't sure how I was keeping the car on the road. And so I pulled over. I'm like, I have got to pull this together, right? I can't continue driving at 80 miles an hour and not see where I'm going. So I'm sitting there along the side of the interstate in my minivan, like crying, and I'm so angry. I'm literally like just beating on the steering wheel. And I got to the breaking point and I said, God, I can't do this. This is too much. I can't continue to think about how my kids are going to grow up without their grandma. I can't continue to feel like a bad wife and mother because I'm leaving my kids and my husband every weekend. I can't feel like a bad daughter because I leave my mom in the hospital. I can't deal with all of this.
Right.
And literally just buckets of tears. I'm sitting in my car. And I'm not kidding. As I sat there and prayed, you got to take something from me. I can't do this. I literally physically felt a weight lift off of my shoulder. Surrender isn't giving up. I didn't give up.
Right.
I was still there for my mom as much as I could. I was still there for my husband and my kids as much as I could. I was still there for my job as much as I could.
Yeah.
But I gave the weight of all of that to God.
Yeah.
And God saw us through. Now, Mom didn't get better.
Right.
We walked through the valley of the shadow of death.
Yeah.
But God was with us. Sorry, that kind of took a turkey trot.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. That's huge. I mean, that's what we need to know. Like, it's not an if we're going to walk through the valley, it's a when. And it's remembering stories like that God's with us in the midst of it. Yeah, for sure.
Get yourself a hiking partner.
I also liked at the very tail end of what Steve said of not yoking your life to fear, and your story. I mean, that you were yoked a little bit, but
big time. Yeah.
Right.
And Yeah. What do you want to be the driving force in your life?
Mm-hmm.
Because I think we get to choose that. That's part of choosing our values and
Yeah.
what's important to us.
Yep. Definitely.
For me, I want love and connection to be a big driving force in my life. Those are very, very important to me.
Yeah.
That doesn't leave room for fear. So sitting down and really thinking to yourself, what do I want to be the driving force?
Mm.
Who do I want at the steering wheel?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know any of us that would choose fear.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to stop letting fear drive.
Psalm 23 doesn't leave room for fear, because it all, God takes care of those things that we are anxious or afraid or stressed out by. Those are all things we give over and leave with God, not just give them over and take them back, again, that's me, but to leave them, really truly leave them and let God have them. Yeah. So important
to give them over to.
Yeah.
This is a great series. I'm glad you guys are doing it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Sunday is the conclusion of the series, and what we're laying down is the idea of jealousy on Sunday. Steve's sermon title is the crab bucket syndrome. I cannot wait to figure out what that is. I've been staring at this piece of paper that Steve left me for like a month now, and I have no idea where the sermon's going. But the little synopsis that he gave me says that jealousy ruins relationships, but Jesus offers restoration when we leave the heavy baggage of envy at his feet. So we're going to be dealing with a little bit of jealousy and envy on Sunday. So
good stuff.
Yes.
Hard stuff.
Hard stuff. Definitely a weight that we do not need to carry, but yet we all do. Yeah.
All of us.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Whether we admit it or not.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. I mean, it can be, as pastors, like, because we're all in the same ball game. We're all doing mostly the same stuff. It's really easy to look at someone else's ministry and then say, oh, you're doing that. I can't do that. And so, that's the birthplace of envy, and it's real easy. It's real easy to get to and really easy to hang on to, but yet it's not what we are called to carry.
Right. Confession, I'm a little jealous that you have a retired pastor in your congregation that can fill in for you.
Fair. Yep.
That's a blessing.
It is absolutely a blessing. It is absolutely a blessing, because I was telling a couple of people this, like, when Auden was born, I took 3 weeks. I was able to get 3 weeks. When Simon was born, I took 0 weeks, because my pulpit supply fell through every week. Like, Lindsay and I were literally on the way somewhere else during when I was supposed to be off, and I got a call and we had to turn around and come home, and I had to finagle together a sermon. But this has been so much better, because I do have a retired pastor, and I do have another, a couple of other very cool lay people that are willing to preach too. Coolio. Well, thanks for being with me today on the podcast, Teresa. Thanks for sharing part of your story and part of your fears and part of the way that God's been working in your life throughout all of it. Go ahead, friends, join us on Sunday at 10 o'clock here at the Canton United Methodist Church for worship, either in person or online on Facebook Live, or join us next week on the podcast. Eric will be back. His son was having some health stuff this week. Everything's fine, but he just needed the time to be a dad. So that's where he was at. But thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for listening to our Cut for Time conversation. Join us for worship in person or on Facebook Live Sundays at 10 o'clock Central Time. And now go in peace and serve the Lord.